574 day of Russian aggression Strait of Ukraine, the situation at the front. Today, there are a lot of new developments in the south. Here, Ukrainians conducted the biggest and most comprehensive strike on the Russian bases in Crimea. The first strike targeted the Krasnodar region with the goal of diverting the attention of the Russian forces from the area of the main strike. Russian sources reported that Ukrainians attacked an oil depot near Sochi with aerial Kamikaze drones. One of the drones managed to hit one of the reservoirs on the side, causing a massive fire. The fire's area reached up to 100 square meters, and firefighters couldn't extinguish it. As a result, 1,200 tons of kerosene were destroyed, and nearby reservoirs were possibly damaged. Initially, Russian sources claimed the fire was likely accidental since locals didn't report hearing drones, and air defense was silent. However, later footage clearly showed remnants of the Kamikaze drone. The fact that no one noticed the drones is precisely why Ukrainians continue striking distant regions. There are two possible outcomes, both beneficial to Ukraine: either the Russians have no air defense in the region, and the strike succeeds, or the Russian air defense was redeployed away from the front. Several hours after the successful strike on the oil depot, Ukrainian drones began patrolling Crimea. The Ukrainians executed attacks on three different areas: northern, western, and southern. In the northern region, explosions were heard near Jonki, a main logistical hub connecting Crimea and Russia with the Kherson and Zaporizhia regions. The likely targets were railroad facilities and warehouses on the town's outskirts, where the Russians often stored ammunition and equipment. In the southern part, Ukrainians focused on military objects around Sevastopol. Initially, explosions were reported near the Belbek airfield. It appears these explosions resulted from the air defense operations, and it seems all drones above the airfield were shot down. Another drone group targeted the area between Sevastopol and Inkerman. Based on geolocated footage, some drones hit their objectives. Air defense was weaker in this area, prompting the Russians to deploy a smoke screen in the bay to reduce the chance of further hits. This precaution makes sense considering the presence of the main fuel depot of the Black Sea Fleet, storing millions of tons of fuel. Next, local residents captured footage of host Storm Shadow missiles heading directly towards Sevastopol. This time, however, the missiles passed by the city and struck a Russian base several kilometers south. Large plumes of smoke rising into the sky indicated a successful hit by the Ukrainians. Both Ukrainian intelligence and the General Staff later confirmed that they had successfully hit and destroyed the command center of the Russian Black Sea Fleet. Interestingly, local occupation authorities stated that the smoke plumes were merely from burning grass. Russian sources later reported that the Ukrainians had used 5 Su-24M aircraft to launch 8 Storm Shadow cruise missiles and 3 AGM-160 decoy missiles. They claimed that 5 of these missiles were shot down and only 3 hit their targets. They also stated that the targeted military base had been out of use for some time. Nonetheless, the Ukrainian strike's impact on the Black Sea Fleet was clear, as the Russians began to evacuate their ships from Sevastopol. In fact, it has since been confirmed that all Russian submarines were relocated to Novorossiysk, following the loss of a $300 million submarine in the coastal region. In the western part of the region, there were reported explosions near Feldossie. The target was the Russian aviation at the Inova Federica airfield. Footage confirmed that some drones hit their targets. The attacks, however, continue. Russian analysts stated that this was the most intense and concentrated strike on Crimea, particularly this region. They believe the Ukrainians aim to exhaust Russian air defenses before delivering a decisive blow with the Storm Shadow missiles. Regarding Russian fighter jets, the Russians have recognized the threat posed by the new cruise missiles in the Ukrainian arsenal and have begun targeting Ukrainian airfields. Recently released footage from the Russian side shows an attack on a MiG-29 at an airfield about 70 kilometers from the front using a Kamikaze drone, Lancet. This raised questions about why the Ukrainians had their jets out in the open so close to the front. Previously, the Russians lacked the capability to attack from such a distance discreetly. They typically used Shaheeds and missiles, the launches of which the Ukrainians could detect in advance and move their aircraft. However, it seems the Russian forces have upgraded their drones, allowing them to strike deeper, and the Ukrainians are now adjusting their tactics. Meanwhile, a sabotage group destroyed 2 Russian jets and 1 helicopter at a Russian military base near Moscow. The attack, using improvised explosive devices, caused panic, especially since this airfield is frequently used by top officials. As a result of the explosions, the Russians lost a Mi-8 helicopter, which they used to shoot down Ukrainian drones, and both Su-148 and Illinois-20 jets. Russian federal services are now searching for the saboteurs, but they have yet to find any leads. Additionally, the Russians lost a Su-34 fighter jet, either due to malfunction or pilot error, in the Voronezh region. Although the pilots ejected safely, the aircraft, a valuable asset, can no longer be deployed against Ukraine.